Pale gray in the morning, it is bright pink by noon on most days. There are no fish. Just about the only living thing capable of surviving in the Pink Lake is a form of plant. This body of water is saturated with salt, so much so that crystals form on any foreign object in a matter of minutes. An ore, or a human being. Prolonged exposure is fatal. Yet the people of this village extract 24,000 tons of salt each year from the bottom of the lake. To spend more than 15 minutes in these beautiful, deadly waters, those who mine the salt coat their bodies with shea butter.
That permits them to stay in the water 2 hours or 3 hours.
The Pink Lake is the source of almost all the salt in West Africa and even beyond. For years, the Pink Lake also was the only source of income for those who live here, although that has very recently started to change. Once isolated and remote, the Pink Lake now attracts tourists. Most of them come to see this wonder of nature, but a few come to be cured.
Bathing in the water is recommended for health because of certain skin diseases like dermatology problems.
Traditional healers have always known the therapeutic value of the salt-laden Pink Lake. Now slowly, word is spreading farther than the bags of salt that leave here.
You have some doctors in Europe that tell their patients to come down here in Senegal to the Pink Lake and get washed.
The truth behind a myth.
Looking at herbs is just a small corner of African traditional medicine. What they do works. Now, can it be explained? Always no. Some people actually think that I'm a traditional healer.
Usually seen in African garments because he is most comfortable in them, Kofi Kandwani is part of a research team investigating the science of traditional healing in Africa, particularly in the treatment of patients living with HIV. People who have little or no access to hospitals, and even if they did, could never afford the antiretroviral drugs produced by pharmaceutical companies. People who were diagnosed with this disease years or even decades ago, yet continue to survive and even thrive. Kofi Kandwani was with me on that memorable visit to Fatigue, Senegal in 2003. He spoke to patients like this woman with diabetes.
What did they do first when you came here?
And to some who were living with HIV for years without doctors or drugs.
I was welcomed and I was surprised because it seemed not to be like a hospital. It was like my family, like my house.
They've never used a microscope to look at HIV. How did they choose these particular herbs for HIV?
He credits Dr. Eric Bedosa.
You couldn't tell who was sick, who was staff, who was visiting. The people there looked very healthy. You didn't see the images that you normally would see on TV in terms of this person has HIV.
I will never forget one woman in the village, full-figured and beautiful, who seemed to radiate health. She showed me a picture of a skeleton, and she said, "This is the way they found me, where my village had put me by the side of the road and left me for dead." And I said, "Well, what did you take?" She said, "I don't know. I just ate 3 meals a day and drank tea at night, and I got better." It's an unforgettable thing how this lady could go from a skeleton to
look like this.
To look like this. Is she still around?
She's still around.
And still healthy?
Absolutely.
How is such a thing possible? That's what we're still trying to find out.
I respect that process, but it's actually translating what he has learned from within to what we can understand.
The westernmost part of the African continent is Dakar, the capital and largest city of Senegal. Home to over 1 million people, it is closer to the United States than any other place on the continent. On the continent. A little over a mile off the coast of Dakar is Gorée Island, a short ferry ride for hundreds of thousands of visitors each year. Gorée Island is perhaps an unlikely tourist destination. A friendly place with beautiful streets and buildings, good food, arts and crafts, and a very unusual serenity all its own. But none of those things are why so many people come. From around the world, people of African descent return here, hoping to reconnect with their roots.
Gorée Island, it's one of the closest points to the United States, and that's why it was chosen.
It's impossible to trace the origins of traditional African healing in the New World, from folk remedies to voodoo, without starting here on Gorée Island. We were not able to bring the traditions and healing methods with us intact from the African continent during slavery. This remarkable animated map, created by Slate magazine, documents the enormity of the Atlantic slave trade. 20,528 voyages over more than 3 centuries. At that time, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World. Over 2 million of those Africans died at sea. 10.5 million spent the rest of their lives in North America, in the Caribbean, Brazil, and elsewhere in South America as slaves. Eloy Coley is chief curator at this unlikely tourist attraction.
The famous slave house of Gorée Island.
The infamous House of Slaves on Gorée Island has become an international destination and a boon for the local economy. In truth, this is just the best known of many places along the west coast of Africa where terrified captives were imprisoned hundreds at a time for days and even weeks in these tiny cells.
They pack them like sardines.
All of that history, it's like you have to swallow it all at once when you walk into the door. It's gaggable because it's there, it's real.
Accompanying Kofi Kondwani and experiencing this for the first time are Aneva Hinson, his fiancée, and Kathy White, executive director of the Andrew J. Young Foundation.
It's such a small, dark place that for one person to be in there, it would have been crowded.
You know, a lot of African Americans will say, I didn't leave nothing in Africa. But when you go there and you see where we were forced into before we left, I won't say unbelievable because it's right in my face. I could see it, I could feel it.
The biggest displacement in the history of human being.
This was the starting point of the destruction of the African family structure, the fragmentation of an entire culture.
So, father could be sent to Louisiana, mother to Brazil, children to Haiti or West Indies. The separation was total. And for the most, they killed the babies.
It's no surprise that strong, healthy young men capable of hard manual labor were highly valued. You may not know that one other category of slave was just as highly valued.
The price of a man was exactly the same with the price of a virgin girl. It corresponds to a barrel of rum or wine. But here, the famous cell for the young girls. They use this cell as a punishment for slaves.
I could smell the smell of us being in those places. So if they cause trouble, this is where they go.
Yeah, because they considered captives, not as human beings, but as a simple merchandise.
Kofi Kondwani believes he would have been one of the countless troublemakers who died in this cell.
It's a shameful place.
And this is known as the door of no return. For those who survive captivity on Gorée Island, the final passage from their homeland. Men, women, and children were marched through the door of no return and onto a wooden bridge to board canoes that would take them further to sea and ships bound for the west.
This door symbolizes the black deportation. So, would you go?
I stood in the so-called door of no return for the last time in 2003.
It's not true. We did return.
Like Kofi Kandwani, I have been on Goree Island more than once, but I felt or tried to feel nothing.
I mean, I refuse to react. I just, well, anger is a negative emotion.
I did stop to sign a guest book at the House of Slaves in praise of those who suffered here, and through 300 years of slavery, we must pledge that their suffering must serve some purpose.
Standing in that doorway, looking at the sight that those that were enslaved saw. And now I'm standing there, strong, alive, pissed, but willing to help as best I can.
Helping as best he can to recover some of the lost secrets of African healing.
Traditional healers, so they took their knowledge from here to wherever they went.
Yes. Because in Africa they use the same medicine.
Traditional medicine.
Traditional medicine.
Okay.
Natural healing.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just trying to understand how they held together that knowledge
Yes,
after
it's
going
something
through
special which existed in African people.
There's a continuum there. It's unbroken, even though at every step of the way we were enslaved.
With a grant from the Ford Foundation, ProMetra conducted a study of 62 confirmed HIV patients at the Malango Center in Fatick, Senegal.
The principal hospital in Senegal say you don't have more than 6 months to live.
They told her that she just had to wait until she died.
They wound up coming to ProMetra, coming to Fatick.
Most of them in advanced stages of AIDS, HIV.
And being treated there with the herbal remedy.
In 6 weeks, the virus was gone. And what they found was that in these 62 people, the blood was free of HIV virus, and the T-cell count had gone back up. They had received no shots or pills of any kind, just a herbal tea.
You need some medicinal plants who are really, really active in various diseases. And this is what we use for our patient in Fatick in Senegal.
5 years later, the same physicians came back and tested the same people, and they were still free of HIV. 61 of the 62 patients was still alive and well and functioning. And the one patient who wasn't still alive and well had been killed in an automobile accident. But what about now? Patients that were tested now almost 15 years ago. How many of them still alive?
About 40 were still alive. And most of them die not because of HIV and AIDS. Some die because of accident. But most of them, they are still alive. And some of them married. The husband don't have HIV. The children they have don't have HIV.
We met some of the patients, or former patients, on that visit in 2003.
We interviewed them 14 years ago. So they had been living 6, 7, 8 years with HIV.
The former doctor who followed my disease told me I have only to live not more than 1 year.
When we just went back, we interviewed several of the same people. And 15 years later, they're still alive. They're still happy. They're still healthy.
Many have remained in or near fatigue, even though they're no longer undergoing treatment.
Their viral loads have decreased to undetectable levels.
Yes.
And what color? How did it change?
Sometimes yellow, sometimes red.
One of the things that they repeatedly told us was that once they started taking the tea, that their urine became a dark brown or a dark red color for a while, maybe 5-6 months. And after that time, the urine cleared up. And as the urine cleared, they were feeling a lot better. Did you notice any change in the color of your urine?
Yes, it was very hot and it was changing color from yellow to very, very red.
The physicians who were with Ford collected the urine before and after. And what they found was, yes, the blood was clean, but the urine was filled with dead virus.
The herb is binding with the virus and actually having the virus leave the body through the urine.
This woman, one of the original 62 patients in the Ford Foundation study, was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS in 1993.
How did you find out?
She gave birth. She was breastfeeding her child, and the child was diagnosed with HIV. 1 week after the child passed away, they called her and they said they wanted to test her, so she was tested positive.
Doctors sent her home to die, but instead, Dr. Eric Badosa brought her here to Malango Center, where he tended to her personally, even rubbing the open sores on her body with shea butter. No longer undergoing treatments of any kind, and by all appearances healthy, she is now president of a support group in fatigue, often counseling new patients.
HIV positive and very scared. What do you tell them?
She recommends to have hope because she was at the same place.
This is nice to see you. How are you?
Not bad.
Oh, good.
Dr. Eric Badosa visits the lab in Atlanta, where scientists have been making experiments with 5 African herbs that he has provided to the Morehouse School of Medicine.
You wanted to see last time?
Yeah?
Mahfouz Khan, a medical researcher in the Department of Microbiology, Biochemistry, and Immunology, is part of a team investigating the effectiveness of Dr. Badosa's herbs against different viral infections.
The active ingredients are very easy to be extracting.
Under the microscope is a plate containing cells intentionally exposed to HIV and almost certain to be infected. But something has been added, a simple water-based solution made from extracts of the 5 Senegalese herbs and nothing more.
If it's infectious, they'll turn blue.
Blue.
If it is not, then they will not.
The results are almost literally unbelievable.
Not even a single blue cell.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's really
amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
There is nothing blue.
Nothing blue. And that means no HIV.
It kills 100%.
The 5 herbs are referred to as compounds A through E. Only Dr. Badosa knows what they are.
Yeah, it is absolutely blind. We have no idea what it was. And they all look very different. They are not exactly same looking plants.
They can kill selectively. The cells were infected. And at the same time, they are protecting the cells who are not infected for a new infection. They block the cell and the virus cannot go inside.
Yeah, it's pretty strong. It's pretty startling for us too to see. There's actually an effect you can see, very easily see.
The results are extraordinary to Dr. Michael D. Powell, director of this groundbreaking program. You use the term fusion inhibitor. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, so HIV first has to attach to a cell to infect it, right? So HIV attaches to a certain molecule that attaches to the receptor on the surface of the cell, and it goes into the cell and infects it. This compound that we've been looking, or the mixture that we've been looking at, actually appears to block that step. It prevents the virus from binding to the cell in the first place, so it can't get into the cell because it can never attach to it.
You heard right. The African herbs seem to prevent AIDS. But that's not all.
It seems like this is actually killing the virus as opposed to...
It's the way you explained to us that it comes out in the urine, and urine turns almost like brown, red. And same thing we see with the virus.
We're going to validate what Dr. Bedoso already knew.
I know very little about what they're doing. All I see is the results. It's clear that whatever their herbal knowledge is, it has a potent effect of stopping the growth of some diseases.
We did not expect it to be like this, so we were really shocked and amazed.
Yeah.
We are very happy to have this help from you and from Dr. Mike Power.
Life is a mystery. We have so much more to learn if we're going to live long and live well. I don't know much about the future of this planet, but I know that everything I have learned in these 85 years, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we did not make ourselves. And the Creator of heaven and earth has much to teach us, and we have much to learn. If we are going to live together in peace, in prosperity, and in good health. Strong medicine. Stronger together.
Thank you.